Welcome to Alternatify, the channel where we delve into the fascinating realm of historical what-ifs. Today we pose a truly monumental question. What if Karl Marx never wrote the Communist Manifesto? Imagine a world utterly devoid of the seismic shifts that defined the 20th century. No Cold War, no Soviet Union, no Maoist China, a global landscape shaped by entirely different political and economic forces. We're about to embark on a deep dive into this alternate reality. We'll explore the ripple effects, the unexpected consequences, and how our world might have been reshaped. We'll weigh the pros and cons of such a profound historical divergence. So settle in, perhaps with a nice cup of tea, for a truly thought-provoking journey. Let's ponder a history that never was. Karl Marx, born in 1818, was a brilliant yet controversial German philosopher. He witnessed the harsh realities of the burgeoning Industrial Revolution firsthand. This experience profoundly shaped his views on society and economics. The Industrial Revolution, for all its progress, brought immense suffering. Workers toiled in deplorable conditions for meager wages. This era was marked by vast wealth disparity and widespread poverty. Marx perceived an inherently flawed system, one that exploited the many for the benefit of the few. He believed capitalism contained the seeds of its own destruction. It was in this crucible that the Communist Manifesto was born. A collaboration with his lifelong friend Friedrich Engels, it was published in 1848. This 23-page pamphlet became an electrifying rallying cry for the working class. The manifesto outlined a vision of a classless society. It advocated for the collective ownership of the means of production. It promoted an equitable sharing of the fruits of labor. This was a radical, revolutionary idea for its time. It ignited a fire that would burn across continents for well over a century. Now let us consider the pivotal divergence. What if the Communist Manifesto had never seen the light of day? Perhaps Marx was distracted by other intellectual pursuits. One might imagine he never met Engels, or their collaboration simply never bore this particular fruit. Perhaps the political climate of 1848 was just different enough to stifle that revolutionary spark. Whatever the reason, its absence would dramatically alter global history. The consequences would be profound and far-reaching. Without the manifesto, other socialist and reformist movements would undoubtedly gain more traction. We might see the Fabian Society in Britain, for instance, or various utopian socialist experiments rise to greater prominence. Their focus would likely remain on gradual change and social reform. This would shape political landscapes in distinctly different ways. The Industrial Revolution itself might have unfolded differently. There's a potential for even more unchecked exploitation of workers. Alternatively, new economic models, like worker cooperatives or mutualist systems, might have emerged as organic responses to injustice. Labor movements would certainly develop along different lines without a Marxist framework. Their focus would likely be on pragmatic goals: better wages, improved working conditions, and shorter hours. There would be less emphasis on revolutionary overthrow. This could lead to a more gradual and less violent transition towards a more equitable society. The 20th century, as we know it, would be utterly unrecognizable. There would be no Cold War, as the ideological battle between communism and capitalism would simply not exist. The absence of the Soviet Union, Maoist China, and other communist states would dramatically alter the geopolitical landscape. The balance of power and the nature of global conflicts would be fundamentally different. Even the fate of colonialism would be affected. Anti-colonial movements might be less influenced by Marxist ideology. The decolonization process could be slower, perhaps more violent in some areas, or conversely more nuanced and negotiated. The development of capitalism itself would be fascinating to observe. Without the existential threat of communism, capitalism might become less regulated, potentially leading to even greater wealth inequality. Conversely, it might adapt to become more socially responsible, striving to maintain its legitimacy in the absence of a radical alternative. The role of the state in the economy and society would also diverge. The welfare state, for example, might develop much slower, or take a completely different form. The balance between individual liberty and collective responsibility would be struck in a new way. Let's delve into some more specific alternate scenarios. In Britain, the Fabian Society's emphasis on gradual reform might have dominated. This would lead to a more moderate, pragmatic approach to social change. The political climate could be more stable, less volatile, though perhaps slower in addressing social inequalities. Consider the impact on the United States. Without the spectre of communism, the McCarthy era and its infamous witch hunts might have been entirely avoided. This could have fostered a more open and tolerant society. However, it might also have led to a less vigilant society against other forms of authoritarianism. Economically, unchecked capitalism could have continued its relentless expansion. This would likely result in even greater wealth concentration. The vast gap between rich and poor might have widened further, potentially leading to increased social unrest and instability. Conversely, capitalism might have been forced to adapt and become more socially responsible. Businesses might have invested more in their workers, providing better benefits and fairer wages. There could have been a greater impetus to address environmental concerns. This could have led to a more sustainable and equitable form of capitalism, driven by internal pressures rather than external threats. The re-emphasis on labor movement's pragmatic focus would be key. Unions would prioritize tangible gains like wages, working conditions, and hours. This shift away from revolutionary goals would reinforce a gradual and less violent societal transition. It's a distinctly different path from the one history actually took. So we've journeyed through an alternate world, a world where geopolitics, economics, and social structures are profoundly different. The absence of one small pamphlet, the Communist Manifesto, creates a cascade of changes. It's a complex interplay of ideas and historical events, isn't it? This thought experiment allows us to appreciate the path history actually took, and indeed, the myriad paths it could have taken. It reminds us how fragile and contingent our present reality truly is. Now we turn to you, our discerning viewers. What are your thoughts on this alternate scenario? What do you see as the pros and cons of a world without Marx's seminal work? Share your opinions in the comments below. If you've enjoyed this speculative journey, please do give us a like and consider sharing your ideas for future Alternatify videos. And of course, don't forget to subscribe to the channel for more fascinating explorations into alternative history.